Another edition of the podcast champs. Myself, Damian G, with DEO, my partner in crime. Find the show on SoundCloud, iTunes, and apparently Spreaker, where last week they re- reposted the episode about 20 times, apparently, right, D?
They reposted it again today and a bunch of other times too. Like it was like every time I looked on Twitter, you had a new tweet. Oh,
A new
I
one
just
at the same
recorded something
time.
on Spreaker, and I'm like, it's the same shit. And like I opened up on my iPad and my iPhone. My podcast app was full of it. It's like, goddamn.
So I don't know the technical difficulties with Spreaker, but I tried to fix it as best I could. But you can find it on SoundCloud, if anything, on the Damon G SoundCloud. So this week, I'm going to lead off with this. Wrestling for me is back to a point. For those who don't know, this past Saturday, I was fortunate enough to be considered a team member for Battle Club Pro's second all-women event. It was in the Palace in Connecticut. Dude, the venue is gorgeous, for one. Like, they should have their shows there all the time because it looked like an actual concert hall
Right.
and not some bootleg like saloon. So that was cool. And secondarily, being able to help out my favorite promotion, from the Northeast, which is, the Bronx, based out of the Bronx, uh, it was a great experience. I was security, air quotes. I I was a plant. I was the guy who was getting the crowd pumped up during certain points of the match. Just I was Mr. Do It All at this point, and it was my first time being a part of the backstage crew, to the point where, you know what, it was probably the best wrestling experience I've had, and I owe this all to broadcasting because if it wasn't for this, I wouldn't be able to do that. So if anyone wants to check them out, X Battle Club Pro on Twitter and Instagram, and on Facebook at Battle Club Pro. They have another event July 21st. It is my last event attending in New York before I head to the Lone Star State. So make sure you go to battleclubpro.com, I believe is the website, and get your tickets today.
Real quick on one of those things that you were saying. So beautiful venues. We need more of this in pro wrestling. Like all too often is it that we are in, the old, of course, in the WWE, they like to talk about bingo halls, and that is what we always. So yeah, sure, we get that all the time. Yes, there's a lot of events in bingo halls and community centers and so on and so forth. Now, there are other places. So like my local lucha event that I like going to, they actually own a nightclub. So they actually have the events inside of the nightclub. So they already have a lighting system. They've already got everything. Like it's basically like the setup is almost like a small Raw or SmackDown. Like it's actually really nice, right? But like I really wish that we could get more events in nicer places, and not just. And some of this has to do with the fandom as well, because a lot of pro wrestling fans are dickheads that don't know how to act when they're out in public. But like we need to get more of that. Like when you change the aesthetic of something, that can go, that can go that can make everything that much better, right? So like you get like I know like one place in, for instance, the where is it, in Kyoto, Japan? The KBS Hall in Kyoto, bruh, that looks like a SNK boss battle stage. It's amazing. But it looks like it's got like stained glass in the background almost. It looks amazing. So like you have places like that. When you have like some of the trendier looking bars where you have stuff like that, looks really dope, and it makes stuff look better. So like I think I want to say it's Rev Pro Wrestling, like where they have like the really dope cut cinematic looking matches and stuff like that. Like just a change of aesthetic. We need more of that in pro wrestling. Like I think Lucha Underground kind of made that. They've been like the first ones to really make that a thing on a big stage, and we need to see more of that. Like, yeah, sure, I love to see WWE stuff in the big venues, but I actually wouldn't be opposed to them doing smaller events as well inside of like smaller venues that look really nice. Like it just adds something special to it. So that was just my little 2 cents on that.
So let me, since you brought up SNK, and if anyone plays video games, King of Fighters, Fatal Fury, and Last Blade and the like, would that venue you reference, would that be a Rugal venue or like an Orochi venue?
That would be an Orochi venue. Absolutely. Like it is like a Rugal venue would be more along the lines of like that would have to be inside of like a museum or some shit like that.
Ah,
Yeah, this is like this, because like the Orochi stuff was very supernatural and all that type of stuff. Like if I remember correctly, there was like some sort of like stained glass in the background too. So yeah, would definitely be an Orochi stage if anything else. I could even see Geese Howard being in that stage.
you know what? I think wrestling needs more Geese Howard stages. Just
Yeah,
and his theme song for independent wrestlers. Like
they need more Geese Howards. Period in wrestling. Like an unrepentant evil person doesn't become a good guy at any point ever. Is a dick. Is overpowered. Reverses every fucking move that you do. Like you have to have. You just need to have them, right? Like it's part of the mystique. And like once somebody finally takes them out, big pop.
So Ciampa, essentially.
Yeah. No.
Nah,
Like
because Ciampa's a dick, dude. Like his character is a dick.
Ciampa's a dick, but like he's not a boss level character though. Like Ciampa is definitely like he is definitely the antagonist to the protagonist in the game. Like he is the Iori to
mid boss.
yeah, he is. So he's the Iori to Johnny Gargano's Kyo.
I love the King of Fighters references. Oh my goodness.
Yeah, so like
what we're talking about, people, go check out the King of Fighters history, then you'll know what we're talking about.
Yeah, so like essentially like it's like the Ryu and Ken, but of a different thing. Like it's evil. Yeah. So and if you haven't, like, go back and play the King of Fighters games. They were awesome. Like that's where like you knew you were skilled if if you can go whoop some ass on some King of Fighters. So, but yeah, there's that.
So on the good news, we're remembering King of Fighters, but on the bad news, unfortunately, pro wrestling Twitter and social media is at it again, man. But then again, different week, same shit. But it spawned an interesting debate with you and I in the DMs and Twitter. And you can find me at DemonG347 and Dio at I'm Just DEO.
I'm just under 900. Get me over.
Get him over to 1,000. Get me over to 2,000. Can a brother get to 2,000 before he gets to Texas? Just
well, I'm just trying to get to 1,000. Period. Then I can spew.
When I got to 1,000, I was like, "Who is following me? Why?"
Yeah.
So, when the DMs, we were having a conversation about how some people were acting up, and it goes back to what we were saying about defending your faves.
Yeah, the faves.
And you will die on the hill for your faves.
Mm-hmm.
Now, what the question it brought up was, how do people react when their faves don't make it, or they blindly follow their faves thinking they deserve to make it,
right?
And they don't, for whatever reason. They're not gonna make it.
Yeah.
So that's a good talking point. So here's the thing. I don't blindly follow anybody.
Right.
If you're a decent, even in athletics, even in sports, I'm not a big fan of fandom like that.
Yeah.
I appreciate more so a team, like the logo that I grew up with. I'm a Knicks fan. So if you follow follow NBA basketball, I'm a Knicks fan. I've always been a Giants fan, Mets fan, etc. I rarely root for the player. Okay. Right. But in wrestling, you don't really get to root for the promotion unless, the independent scene, because then some people will just blindly follow WWE, or there's some people who are pro Alexa Bliss, and there's some people that hate Alexa Bliss based on this past weekend.
Right.
But what do you do? And I'll let you have the floor on this one. What do you do as a fan, Theo, because you're a pretty level-headed fan, when you know in your heart of hearts that your fave just isn't cut out for the main event spot or even making it past a certain point?
I mean, you just have to accept it. Like, and that's with me. There have been so many people that, like, I thought over the years, I was like, man, I really love, like, so for instance, back in the WCW days, there was a tag team called High Voltage.
I knew you were going to say that.
Fun fact, when after WCW. No, actually, this was before WCW got bought. I actually found out about WCW getting bought before it happened. So they hadn't been on TV in like months or like a few weeks or some shit like that.
Yeah.
And like they were coming to hook up cable in my apartment, my mom's apartment at the time. And like the dude walked in, I was like, I know this guy from somewhere. What the like? And it's obvious that this is a big like. This is a if you knew who High Voltage were, these are some big stocky dudes, right? You can tell. And like I was like, "Are you? Do you wrestle?" He's like, "Oh yeah, I'm Kenny Chaos from High Voltage," and basically he was like, "Oh yeah, no, like a lot of us got let go because the company's probably gonna get sold soon. This is that and the other." So like, I thought they were awesome. They were tag team champs for a while. They got then they just kind of disappeared.
Wait, they won the title?
If I remember correctly, they were like WCW tag champs for
a
tiny minute. But like, I thought they were dope. They had a great look, really nice in the ring from what I can remember, of course, because nostalgia kind of paints everything to be better than it was.
Of course.
But like, thinking of like if you think about it, like they weren't cut out for the WWE. They really weren't talkers. Like they had a look, but it wasn't a look that was going to transfer to the larger audience. Like there's just certain people that they don't have that it factor to make it. Like so they might have the it factor to make it to into like the NXT roster, right? Or even into the developmental portion of NXT.
Right.
But there are like folks that are down there that have been in developmental for like hell. Some of them are like 4 or 5 years now. Tyler Breeze, and we talked about this before. Tyler Breeze and Angelo Dawkins had been there like a decade basically before they finally got something. And like, so you have that, and like, but some of them just aren't going to be cut out to make it to main roster NXT, right? Because we see all the time people got let go. They're released from a contract. Like you saw a bunch of the people from Tough Enough, the 2 winners from Tough Enough got let go. ZZ got like some people just aren't cut out to do this. And a lot of times people get like the rose-colored glasses when it comes to people that are in NXT because a gimmick will work in NXT, but it won't work on the main roster. And they'll immediately blame booking for it not working on the main roster. And it's like, you got to remember, NXT is a weird echo chamber. It's a small audience, and it's a very hardcore group of fans that are going to cheer their faves like crazy in that small thing, but then when you get like Bayley, for instance, Bayley was over like crazy in NXT. But then when she went up to the main roster, it's like, because we didn't have, her character just does not translate the same way, that it did on like a smaller audience, So it's like sometimes you just have to accept, okay, maybe this person just isn't cut out to do, to be the one, like for this is the point that I always like to go back to. This is an industry that is built on playing roles. It's not because like I think this has more to do with the current social media age that we're in, where people want instant gratification for what they like and who they like.
Of course.
And when it comes to, pro wrestling, you just don't get that because everybody has to play a role. Everybody can't be champion. Everybody can't be getting a push all the time. Like you can only focus on 3 or 4 stories for the entire show, like 3 or 4 really good stories throughout the whole thing. Otherwise, it's going to get to be too much, even if it is 3 hours, right? So some people are going to grow and become the John Cenas, and then you're going to have, for every John Cena, there's going to be 100 Barry Horowitzes that are literally just going to be there. Like you're going to have the Barry Horowitzes of the world. You're also going to have the mid-card people, like
Cesaro.
You're going to have the Cesaros. Yes, Cesaro's got everything and we love him and he's great and this is that and the other. But I'm going to be real with you. I don't see, as it is now, right? I don't see him as like a main event kind of person. He can put in main event performances.
Yes.
I don't buy him as a main event like superstar, you know? Like he is the goofy foreign guy, essentially. Like in real life, that's what he is, you know? Like if you watch him on Up, Up, Down, Down and on Twitter, he's a goofball, right?
He's so likable too on social media like that. You know
so likable. But it's like there is that threat level just is it just doesn't I just don't receive it. I guess maybe I'm just not picking up on it. But then like somebody like a Samoa Joe, man's a goddamn menace. Like there was like one video that I always like to go back to when he and Xavier Woods, it wasn't E3, I don't think, but it was one of the big video game conferences. And like Xavier Woods was trying to intro the video, and like Samoa Joe just kept on pacing behind him, and he was like, "Dude, this is fucking scary. Stop!" And it's like but you know, you look at him, and he just kind of oozes that charisma. Some people just don't do that, you know. Like some folks just don't have it. Yes, you can stand for them all that you want. Doesn't mean that they actually have it. Sometimes, a lot of times, I shouldn't say sometimes, a lot of times, we put expectations on wrestlers that they don't really need to have. Like, and then when you go and you're gassing them up, telling them that they deserve to be champion, like, look, everybody doesn't deserve to be champion. You just don't. Like, it's not like this isn't the participation trophy thing. No, everybody doesn't get something. You have to play a role.
And that's okay. Like in sports, okay, baseball, they have a thing called utility players where they fit in. Basketball, role players, football, special teams players, you know, where they're not stars, they're not even second tier, but they're on the team, they're getting paid, they've made it, air quotes. So what's the problem? Right. So for me personally, and when you talk about Samoa Joe, I want to compare him to a video game character for a split second. Nemesis. Like when you talk about someone behind you trying to stalk you from behind and you don't know when they're going to get you, he's Nemesis from Resident Evil.
Absolutely.
Because he will come up from behind you out of nowhere, not like Randy Orton. No.
Yeah.
Samoa Joe will kill you out of nowhere and you will not see it coming.
Yeah. So for my Monster Hunter World players out there, if you're listening, he is Basil Geist, if you guys know what that is, shows up out of nowhere and usually shows up when you are fighting another larger monster and it just dive bombs and explodes everything. And like you said, it's not like Randy Orton, because like, I'm sorry, the whole RKO out of nowhere, that's actually going to hurt Randy Orton more than it's going to hurt you in real life.
Yeah.
Just off of physics and ergonomics, it's not like some massive Samoan coming up behind you and putting you in a chokehold. Nah, bro, you going to sleep. You going to sleep, bro.
And there's nothing you can do about it.
Nothing, shit you can do about it.
Because you know how like on this show, and for those who just listening, this is the podcast Chance, myself, Damon G with DEO. We always talk about people who want to use wrestling moves in a real fight, right? Now they think they can fight because they watch wrestling.
Right. Yes, don't do it.
Samoa Joe's moveset is indicative of a man who can kill you in a street fight.
Yeah.
Everything, the grapples, the throws, the chokes. Randy Orton is just his little pretty little RKO and his little power slam. Like, yeah, you're going to do that in a real street fight? Really?
No.
Which is why probably Samoa Joe doesn't get pushed as well as some people would like, myself included. We're keeping with the theme here of someone not being pushed.
Yeah.
Samoa Joe fits that description.
Right.
Where you want him to hit the moon because he was a badass in Ring of Honor, on the indie circuit, in TNA, Impact, whatever they call themselves now. And then he goes to WWE, he's jobbing Roman, you know, or he's hitting his head on the mid-card title and doesn't get any farther. But you know what? Samoa Joe's probably happy because he's still getting paid.
Right. And not just that, but like every single time he's wrestling, he leaves them. He makes a statement, right? It's never he didn't feel like a threat. Every single time he has had a big main event moment, like I don't care I don't even care about the damn outcome of him versus Brock. He whooped Brock's ass in that
yeah,
fight.
no, that was a real fight, dude. Nah, that
Yeah.
would be a UFC fight right there.
Yeah, like that was like and this is what I'm talking about. Some people just have it. No matter he is going to get a title, right? Like it's as long as he stays healthy-ish, he's going to end up getting the title at some point.
Mhm.
But like he leaves a mark every time he's in the ring. He makes it count. And like some folks just don't really, maybe it's like a skill. Sometimes it's like a skill. Sometimes it's lack of motivation, like whatever it is. But everybody's not meant to be like number one all the time. But back to what you were saying.
Yeah. So, in keeping with the story, what we're saying here, look, I have my personal faves in ring, not WWE, even just on the indies, because I think everybody knows for the most part that I am a women's wrestling connoisseur, supporter, fan, whatever you want to call it. And for as much as let's take Candice LeRae, for instance. Now on the indies, because she does, or even better, you could take who was just released, Kimberly.
Yeah.
On the surface, you would think those two would be tearing up the WWE women's division.
Right.
But here's the problem. WWE doesn't adhere to wrestling. They
Right.
adhere to entertainment. And I hate that I have to keep reminding people of that.
Right.
Candice LeRae, when I saw her in the Mae Young Classic last year, did nothing for me.
Right. Me neither.
But I saw the match with her and Joey Ryan versus the Bucks, where she caught the super kick in the face and the thumbtacks in the mouth. I saw that. I said, that woman is tougher than I am.
Right.
I've seen Kimberly get tossed around by a 300-pound Keith Lee type Haas dude. By the way, shout out to Keith Lee for finally making it to NXT. I hope they don't make him, like you said, an R&B singer called Keith Lee Sweat.
Yep. Like I can feel it. I can feel it, and it hurts.
So Vince, please don't make Keith Lee an R&B crooner like you tried to make Cesaro a secret agent.
Yeah.
No. But those two tearing it up on the indie scene. The minute they get to NXT, meh.
Yeah.
Because they don't entertain.
Right.
And that's okay, because they would have fit a role right now, because Johnny Wrestling still in NXT. I don't know if they're ever going to bring her up with him or it's a separate deal. I don't know. But I'm honestly not expecting a lot out of Candice LeRae on the main roster.
Mm.
And I know everybody says, well, Vince has a thing for blondes, so maybe she'll get a push that way. Is that really how you want her to get pushed?
Right.
You want her to get pushed because she's blonde?
Right.
How about you get her pushed because she's one of the toughest women in all of wrestling?
Right.
Like one of our personal favorites, Ruby Riott. You and I are fans of hers.
Absolutely.
You think they're ever going to let her get the ball?
I actually do.
Long term.
Yeah. Like, so the simple fact that they did a behind the scenes look at her from where she came from the other day.
As Heidi Lovelace.
Like, yeah, that's a good sign already. The fact that they are allowing her to have so many big matches. She is the head of a stable. I think that they recognize something there. And it's not too often that we get that, did you get like last time I remember doing that much. I don't remember any of the women actually getting that treatment, except maybe Bailey, I think. Maybe. Yeah, Bailey got one.
Oh, yeah, those behind the scene interview things, right?
Right, yeah. Mm-hmm. So like I don't really see too many people getting that. So that's a pretty good sign. But you never really know with this company.
But then again, it goes back to, on the surface, you wouldn't think Heidi Lovelace or Ruby Riott fits what WWE was looking for. And yet she is, especially now that Paige is no longer an in-ring competitor. So people were calling her Paige Light. Let's be real. She was called Paige Light when she debuted on the WWE network or the shows.
Right.
But me personally, it's okay to not have your faves make it to the main event spot.
Right.
It's okay for them to just make it. Okay. I got to say it. And I know he's a favorite of a lot of people, myself included, because I've seen a lot of his indie work. Chris Hero.
I don't get it. I don't get it. I haven't, like, I've never seen him live, and everybody says, "Oh, you got to see him live." I don't get it. It's like I just don't get it.
Okay, and that's good. We can have this debate after I make the point. He wrestles a style I love, which is the strong style. The minute he got to NXT, nada. He can move a lot of merch because he wears different jerseys.
Right.
You know, because everybody loves a basketball jersey, especially remember in the '90s when everybody was rocking like Orlando Magic or whatever hometown team you had.
Right.
So a lot of throwback jerseys, you can market that. But for me, he works on the indies. He does not work for WWE, but he's there.
Right.
There's the victory in and of itself because people would always say he's not going to come back. He's not going to come back. And then they brought him back. Just like they brought back James Ellsworth. For some reason, they brought back Ellsworth. But is Ellsworth ever going to get a title? No. And he's okay with that.
And like, that's the thing too. I'm pretty sure Chris Hero, Cassius Ohno, which I fucking hate that name. So I hate it. That's one of the reasons why I don't get it. I do not like that name.
I don't think it's his fault though.
No, it is his fault because he likes the name. He defends the name. He says he actually helped come up with it. And I'm like, no, bro, this nope. It doesn't work for you, guy. It does not work for you. I'm sorry. But yeah, like he is essentially like the enhancement talent for down there, right? Like he is a gatekeeper at this point, which I actually dig. You know, sure, yeah, you guys like the strong, like I guess this is me coming from a martial arts watching background, whether it be kickboxing, MMA, or the sweet science of boxing. Like he doesn't look the part. Like it's one of those things where it's like, okay, yeah, he can do the cool moves, but for me, it's just not believable.
Okay.
Like that's part of what it is for me. It just isn't believable. I'm not a fan of the attire. I'm not a fan. Like it's just, for me, it's just like, yeah, you guys like him. Yay. I don't get it. I just don't get it.
And that's okay because you and I talk all the time about the fact that there are going to be wrestlers that we don't like that other people do.
Yeah,
that's cool.
Yep.
Like, okay. Back to here's a person that I've never got, and I brought this up even when I did Last Mark Standing. I don't get Colt Cabana.
I don't either.
I don't. And I know there's a place for comedy wrestling, but nah, bro. I would rather see Joey Ryan do his, whatever you want to call it, his Magnum PI meets Dirk Diggler gimmick than Colt Cabana. Because honestly, Ethan Page is a better Colt Cabana for me.
There, thank you. Okay. So it's not just me. That's what I've been seeing this for like the past like 6-7 months. I'm like, each time I see a match, I'm like, it's like the Spider-Man meme where you have Spider-Man pointing at Spider-Man. I was like, oh, okay, this is what this is. Yeah, like for me, as far as like look goes, that's just who it's been for me. So I'm like,
And don't get me wrong, and everybody knows this for the most part, I'm a big Ethan Page fan. I met him once. He was the guy who got me into heels on the independent scene. Now, does he have the physical body type that Vince is going to say, bring that guy in? Probably not. But he was on Impact. He made it. He was Joseph Park's brother or whatever the case may be. He was getting paid to be on the second biggest promotion in North America.
Right.
He made it.
Yep.
Su Yung, knockout champion. She made it.
Yep.
If she never steps foot in WWE overall.
Yeah. I mean, she was in technically speaking.
Yes, OVW, right?
OVW back in the day, yeah.
Yes. But that goes back to what we're saying. It's like, it's okay for our favorites to not make it. We're not going to go down with the ship. At least I'm not. I know you're not.
No.
So since you and I are a little bit of the hot take brothers on this show, I gave you two.
Okay.
Give me one male and one female that you just don't get people's adoration for. And I just want to apologize to the audience for the cop cars outside. They are not coming for me, just so you
know. One person that I just don't get.
From both genders.
You know what? I've got a bit of a complex one for the guys.
Okay.
And I say this as someone that was a fan of him back in the day. It's a why I don't get why you guys like him now thing. And that is since they just had that WWE 24/7 on the network about this, Jeff Hardy.
Mm.
And I was a card carrying Hardy Brothers fan back in the day. I had the shirts. I made stockings and ripped them shits up. Like I was about the Hardys. I don't get it. Like now it's like, okay, yes, he was the accessory to the broken universe gimmick, right? Like he really didn't do anything in there for me. It was all Matt. And Matt has always been my favorite of the two also. But like, I don't get why new fans would be like, oh my God. I understand why like some people like him from, back in the day, they had crushes on him back in high school or whatever it was. But like now I'm like, he's slow. He can't do his moves right anymore. Like I don't get it anymore. I really don't get it. That's one male. One female. That does it have to be WWE or just like all
Anywhere.
One woman that I just don't get it. That's a tough one, actually.
So while you're debating that, I'll jump in on the Hardy thing.
Shazza. There you go. Shazza. I don't get it. Shazza McKenzie, I think it is, or whatever. She's done a few matches on NXT as enhancement talent. Mm-hmm. She was a Shimmer champion for a while. She just kind of made headlines recently because she had the made the accusation that some old Aussie wrestler or something like that harassed her and sexually harassed her behind a locker room full of.
Oh yes, okay, now I know who.
Yeah. Okay. So which I completely believe her because I know what dudes in locker rooms and shit, so I'm not surprised by that at all. But yeah, people stand for her hardcore. And I was like, I just don't get it. I've watched her matches elsewhere. I've seen her matches in the WWE, and I'm just like, okay, cool. Don't get it.
I love it. You're just like, but don't get me wrong. I get it. I understand. And I'm sure anyone listening to Podcast Champs right now probably has one or two people. So if you have anyone in mind, folks, if you're listening out there, let myself know on Twitter or let Dio know on Twitter. I'm just DEO for Dio and Damien G347. Let us know, regardless of gender, who just don't you get the adoration that people have for. It can even be sports. Let's expand it to sports, because there is just some athletes out there where I'm like, man, y'all need to stop riding the jock, for real, man. Knock it off. So for me, Colt Cabana is one, like I said. Number two, all right, I'm going to say this. There's a wrestler out here, a female wrestler out here. I know Henry T. Casey is going to know exactly who I'm talking about when I say this. She is the number one woman at House of Glory. Her name is Sonia Strong. Now, she's a Boricua from the Bronx, so by default, I'm supposed to root for her, right? That's the supposed thing.
I know you're talking about now, yeah.
I've seen her the last 2 years that I've been covering independent wrestling. I don't get it.
Yeah.
I don't get it. I've told Chip this. Regression. All I see is regression. So that's mine from the Northeast. Nope, not going to work. And I don't get it. So Henry calls her the female Roman Reigns because Fuji just tries to get her over at all costs, no matter who she goes up against. She's gone up against Sue, Santana, Jessica Havoc, and they have to put her over.
Yeah.
And why?
Yeah, that's a tough one. That is a tough one.
But all in all, and we can segue off this topic after this, but man, dude, you've seen it on social media. You've seen that there's people out there who will be on Twitter, especially when it comes to Japanese wrestlers, which we talked about last week.
Yep.
They will die on that New Japan ship of certain people. And I say ship because they want to make everything a ship.
Everything's a ship. And here's the thing, I ship some shit too. Like I ship the hell. There's a great many wrestlers that I ship. You know what I'm saying? Like I ship Finn and Bailey. I ship Peyton and Billy.
Oh, I ship Peyton Big Tom.
Like I ship so many of them, but like there's a bunch of, but yeah, like especially with like Japanese wrestlers, there is like this this undercurrent of people that are just like, oh my god, they're so in love. No, stop it, stop. It's like you're making it weird. You're making it weird.
They've already made it weird. The fact that we're talking about it on our show makes it weird. The fact that's like, this is what people do, dude. They make fan fictions.
Yeah.
You know, and again, this is not to be judgmental, but I just want to know why. Like if that's part of your art form, like we talk about that one artist that paints or draws Mustafa Ali all the time. Like, okay, cool. That's part of your thing. That's how you make some money if you draw, if you're an artist. But those who don't get any kind of monetary satisfaction,
right,
or they know them personally, especially the ones that don't know people personally.
Right, yeah.
How the hell do you ride or die with people you don't know personally? Because they were nice to me a couple of times at meet and greets.
They like my tweets. Right, they like my tweets.
They're supposed to.
They use some of my art.
They are public personas. They're supposed to be nice to you. If they're dicks to you, then you talk about it. And again, it goes back to what we've always talked about: the delusion of sports and wrestling fans.
Mm-hmm.
I just can't.
Yeah, I mean, like we've talked about this before previously. Like we did when we had Matt Roth on here. Like, and I mentioned like pro wrestling tends to attract broken toys. Like just being real about shit. Pro wrestling tends to bring like it, since it is a niche sport that it was for outcasts for the longest time, and now it's becoming more of a mainstream thing. Like it gathered. This was like the island of misfit toys for the most part, right? For the longest time, that's who we were as pro wrestling fans. We were the lepers. We were shipped off so that we wouldn't spread the virus to anybody else.
We're lepers. Damn, okay.
Not like you remember what it was like back in like the 90s and early 2000s? Like the late 90s, early 2000s when folks were like, nah, you watch pro wrestling back in the day, you know.
Loser.
Yeah. So like now it's becoming more of a mainstream accepted thing. You know, you have all the rappers that, you know, talk about having, you know, Ric Flair and all that stuff, have him in music videos. All of a sudden, pro wrestling's becoming cooler again. Like, you know, WWE just got bought by Fox and they're going to be like on this massive, you know, platform now. Like, there's that. But like you have these broken toys. Because I don't want to call people crazy or anything like that, but you have these broken toys, and that's part of it. But also, it's the fact that we've had to, and I say we because I am a pro wrestling fan, but we had to suspend disbelief for so long that I think some of us have completely lost touch with reality. You know, like whether it be the people that think that they can do pro wrestling moves in real fights, which sometimes they do work. Like like if you want to go, you can look up super kick knockouts in MMA. There's been Boston Crab submissions, crossface chicken holds, the whole nine. Like some moves that are based in reality, yes, but like you're not going to be able to sit around and like, you know, do a spiked Huracan Rana on somebody. Or, you know, if you go and try to RKO somebody, your back is fucked.
Right.
So like, but you know, you have that, but then you also have the folks that are like, especially because of social media and like people want to gain, you know, they want to make their they want to grow their fan base. So they're going to be interact with as many people as possible. Right. Like, you see it all the time with people that when they're like a couple years ago when, you know, their Twitter followings were only in the hundreds. And as they move them way up, like back then they answered everybody, right? They had personal relationships, Twitter relationships relationships, at least with some of these people. But now that they're on bigger shows and they're traveling all the time, some of them have made it to the WWE. They can't talk to everybody. You know, like this is so like some of it because yes, every now and then they'll reach out and interact with fans every now and then, or they'll retweet fans, or they'll do this, and like that gives some folks like a false sense of, you know,
kinship,
closeness. Yeah, but like, so I remember there was one that I brought up. I think I might have brought it up to you before, and it was with Becky Lynch. And I get on Twitter and I start seeing like it came in through somebody else's, you know, somebody else had interacted with this person. So it showed up on my timeline. And basically, he was one of those Becky Lynch stan accounts, had thousands of followers, right? But never got, you know, all he did was post about Becky Lynch and Becky Lynch GIFs and artwork and what have you, right? So one day she went on, which wrestlers do all the time, where they like and retweet a bunch of people's tweets, right? Or they'll tweet them back, or, you know, they might quote tweet them and say something inspirational or a thank you, right?
Right.
So he didn't get that. So he got pissed. Like he went out, like he started becoming super racist and sexist and like started to threaten to like hurt people in real life. Like not like oh yeah, if I see you, I'm gonna punch you in the face. Like he's like, no, I can find your IP address, I will track you down and kill you type stuff. So like you have some of these deviants in the mix, and it's like this is I don't know if this is a bit much here. And of course, you're gonna have those types of stands in every fandom, but we tend to see it more in pro wrestling because pro wrestling has become a cult of personality. You know, there you go.
See what you did there.
Exactly. But it is like it's become a cult of personality, which is why that was so perfect for CM Punk, because he's a cult of personality. He had, like, was he the best in the ring? Hell no. I don't give a fuck what anybody says. He was not all that great in the ring. He had great matches, sure, but like compared to like other people, he really wasn't all that great. He was an amazing person on the microphone. He used charisma. Like he had that factor to him. Like the whole thing that he did where it was the when he like took over one of the Royal Rumbles and was like giving like the whole soliloquy about
the sermon.
That was dope. I know a lot of folks like to say the pipe bomb's the best. Nah, the sermon was the best fucking thing that he did. Like that shit was awesome.
Because every time they eliminated somebody, he just sat right back down and did his sermon.
Exactly. Like that is, I get it. Perfect. That's cool. But like you have a lot of these folks that like they've grown these fandoms. Sometimes it's because of their talent. Sometimes it's because of their aesthetic. Sometimes it's because they represent a group of people that aren't represented all the time, whether it be by race, gender, body type, you know, maybe they have it in disorder or something like that. Like a lot of times you have folks that, you know, folks will gravitate towards them because of X, Y, or Z, you know, like we know of Nia Jax. Nia Jax is all about body positivity, which is one of the, for me, is like, I don't know why you guys keep making her a heel. She is a face through and through. Like you can't have her being like a shit heel in the ring, and then at night she's just being like the most inspirational person on Twitter. Like it's like, you know, so like you have someone with like a fan base like hers, which a good portion of that fan base are people that, you know, maybe they have or have had body identity issues, you know, like you're sometimes you have that where like certain people have certain things, like, you know, some, you know, as right now the whole trope is that the WWE loves blondes.
Right.
And you have folks like, oh, well, these folks aren't blondes. I'm going to gravitate towards them. These don't match the prototypical WWE aesthetic that they go for. You know, back in the day, the Maurices and the Michelle McCool's, the Stables, you know, size 0, you know, massive implant. What, you know, the archetype that they had back in the day, right?
Of course.
So, like, sometimes, especially in this day and age, you can get a massive fan base off of that. And going back to what we were talking about before, where you're sometimes it's okay that your faves don't get it. That is part of it. Like, just because they represent something that is close to you does not mean that they deserve to be a champion, right? This is an industry that is run by a booker. Doesn't matter what promotion it is. There is somebody in the back choosing who does and who does not get a push, who gets to wrestle tonight, who gets the championship. There is no deserve, right? Like, it's not like it is in an actual combat sport where you beat someone so you move up in the rankings, right?
Yeah.
There is
Like
no
boxing, right?
like boxing. Like, there is no, okay, you just beat the number 7, so that takes you to about number 6. You know, like, there is none of that here in this. Somebody is like, oh, well, I want to push this person. I want to push that person, right? Like, there is no they deserve it. Like, and I know that whole you deserve it chant thing that people like to have. It's like the
Who makes that call? Yeah, when you like, that's another chant that bothers me now that you brought that up.
Yeah.
You make the fans make that call. They
Right.
deserve it. What if they're just garbage and
Right.
you still think that they deserve it? And I'm not gonna throw shade at anybody in particular, but we have talked off air about certain wrestlers that no matter what, they're garbage.
Yeah.
And when people do I've heard a couple of these wrestlers we've talked about get the "you deserve it" chant, and I'm just looking around like, why do they deserve it again?
Right. What exactly have they done to deserve this applause? Like, what is like, oh, yes, they've been on, they've been with a company for a long time, they pay the dues, but do they actually deserve it? What have they done to deserve this thing? Especially when it's an industry where somebody picks who wins.
It's not based on actual athleticism.
Not based on merit.
Wins or losses. Yeah,
it's not based on merit. Bray Wyatt has one of the worst win-loss records in the goddamn company. He's been a champion several times. Did he deserve it?
Now.
Right. Did he deserve it? Because he had, like, what is this scale of someone who deserves it and who does not deserve it? And the thing about this, while this scale, especially when it comes to male fans, is this built-in misogyny that so many of them have, that anytime a woman, so today, since Carmella, since something that we'll probably talk about at some point, since one Lawrence Cassidy was
thank you took it from me. Thank you.
Was eliminated from the company today and wasn't even Future Endeavor. They just let that motherfucker go. So he got let go. Enzo Amore got let go recently, right? So the thing, I put out a tweet and I was like, and I basically said, I was like, oh yeah, Carmella was brought on as an accessory for Big Cass and Enzo Amore, right? And look at her now. She's a champion, and the other two are, and she's still employed. The others are not. Of course, one of the replies, oh, it's because she sucked the right amount of dick backstage. How? One, how do you know this? Oh, just look it up. You can read it on like Reddit. Fuck out of here. I'm not gonna listen to some neckbeard that wears a fedora on the weekends when they say, oh, well, I have inside information that somebody said. Shut up. You don't know.
I'm gonna put this dude on blast because I'm looking at your tweet right now. So at Stone Jones, JONESS, said, and I quote, not assuming it's facts. Her and Alexa just look it up, plus the Bellas too, in terms of they've gotten ahead, wink, wink, in their careers
because of that. Right. And it's like, bruh, how do you know this? Because this is only ever a thing when it's female competitors. It is only ever a thing when female competitors say this stuff.
Right.
It's never you never hear anything about, oh, well, Roman Reigns sucked a bunch of dick backstage. That's why he's on the main card. What? You never hear that when it's men. Never. It's only ever a thing when it's a female superstar. Only ever. You never hear that. It's horrible, right? Like there's and this is part of like one of the many reasons why like I do not like pro wrestling fandom from the male side, because you're always going to have that no matter what a female performer does. They could go out there and do a 5-star. They could put on like back-to-back 5-star matches on Raw and every single pay-per-view for 6 months, right? And you're still going to have folks, she's only getting a push because she's backstage sucking dick. What? The fuck out of here.
Yeah,
like it's ridiculous. And like yeah, like so that's just one of those things. But like, for instance, Carmella has always had that it factor, going back to what we were talking about before. Always has had that it factor from the time that she stepped on screen. She was always magnetic. It was kind of rough in NXT, but once she got her footing, it was off to the goddamn races. And like, you have so many of these folks that will refuse to credit women for what they do. And it's like, why? Who hurt you? Who hurt you?
Who hurt you? I love that phrase.
Who hurt you that you guys have to resort to this every single time? It's ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous.
But here's the thing: it's never going to go away.
It's
never going to go away. We're going to hear this until you and I are 105 years old and still doing podcast champs when we're like 105.
Absolutely.
So it's almost for me to say, I don't like it, but like you said, there's going to be neckbeards and bomb shelter babies that are going to come out the woodwork and say, well, this person's doing this because they are dating this person behind the scenes. Shut up. You don't know anything, like you said. You don't know squat. And if you do know squat, shut up anyway. Ain't nobody's business.
Right.
That's another thing.
Yeah.
People in other people's business in life and in wrestling and in sports, like, yo, you're not TMZ. Shut up.
Right.
I don't need to know so-and-so's dating so-and-so. I don't need to know person A is hooking up with person B. This ain't high school.
Right.
Since when did wrestling Twitter or wrestling fandom become high school?
It's always been that way. It's always been that way.
It's always. This is why your boy tends to stay off social media for a while.
Yeah.
I can't. So I want your opinion on Big Sass being released.
It's like he's been garbage the past few like month or two since he's been back. Mm-hmm. He was never really that great when he got up to the main stage. In NXT, which I spoke about before, NXT is an echo chamber. Like, a lot of times things that we would otherwise not overlook, we will just completely gloss over those things. And a lot of the issues that he had on the main stage, he had in NXT. So it's like, since he's gone, of course, like, that's why, and of course, you know, since he and Carmella were dating for a while, I think they were engaged at some point, I think. Yeah. So, like, of course, it's anytime, for some reason, the man always gets not for some reason, we know exactly why, but the guy always gets the benefit of the doubt. So it had to be because, you know, she got ahead because she did something sexually. And because, of course, you know, women don't have agency at all. That's just not the thing. Of course not. So, yeah, for me, it's like, it's whatever. He hasn't been that great on the roster recently. I can't remember one of his matches, you know, like being good. Like, he was a great heater in NXT, but that's because it was NXT. You know, like, on the main roster, it's just been like, eh. And with the departure of one real one, as he goes by now, like, he got exposed. Enzo was what kept him afloat, essentially. Like, they are a pair that need each other. They are a symbiotic team.
I was going to say, you put them together, they might actually be a decent superstar.
Right. Exactly. If you could take Enzo Amore's skills on the microphone and Big Cass's action, that's the thing. Just his size. And you could have got away with a lot because he ain't that great in the ring. No. But, like, yeah, it's like, it is what it is. I'm not gonna cry about it. You know, I'm not gonna be like, oh man, they didn't know who they were missing, which I'm gonna get back to in a second too. But
right. And for me personally, I've always said, other than his big boot, there was nothing redeeming about Big Cass because he struggled to body slam people who were 210.
Oh yeah. So
Like
you
you can
remember?
see, like he has a hernia. Looks like he's struggling with a hernia to body slam even a cruiserweight.
Yeah.
So I'm sorry, you can't be 6'8", 280, and struggle to body slam somebody that's 210.
Oh yeah. When he had the gorilla press slam Enzo Amore off the ramp, and his arms were just shaking. I was like, oh no,
Someone's
pobrecito.
core strength is not good.
It ain't there. It was like, you big for nothing motherfucker. But
Remember when they do the off the ropes launcher where he would just throw him over the top rope? Not even
Yeah.
gorilla press, like that carry throw.
yeah.
He struggled with that. There were times where I thought Enzo was gonna die because Cass didn't throw him far enough.
Yep.
And Enzo weighs what, 160 soaking wet?
Yeah.
170?
Yeah. He's like 170, 180 pounds at most.
Yeah.
You know, so but yeah, that whole when he would be on, he's like, oh yeah, I'm 210. But no, you're not, sir. I'm 210 pounds. Actually, I'm about 220 right now, but like, no, you're not. You got to chill out with that shit. But so as to what I was saying before, when people get let go, right? So this is one of those things that you need to understand, especially when it comes to your faves, especially when it comes to your faves in the developmental area, right? Everybody is not going to work in that system. Everybody's not going to thrive in that system. So recently, Zeta Zhang was released, which actually, you know, I was looking forward to her being in ring. But since then, and she was like, oh yeah, we're not on bad terms or anything like that. Like I actually want to go out here and I want to wrestle. And she has been on a show like every fucking week for like the past month since she's been let go. Right. Like, so you've got like just stuff like that. And I was like, okay, sometimes people need to be let go in order to be able to grow. Right. So take, for instance, EC3. Had he not been let go back in the day from NXT, would he become EC3? No, he would not. He just would not. There are so many people that have been let go that have gone out on the indies and just flourished and then come back to the, then they come back to the system, right? Like Bobby Lashley wasn't all that great when he was in the WWE. When he went to go out and he was in TNA, he actually got better. The current story right now with him was, but in ring, he's still great, right? Like sometimes you have to be let go in order to grow sometimes. And the other thing too, sometimes like we were saying from the beginning of this, everybody's not cut out to be in the number one spot. Sometimes you're not even cut out to have a spot. Like what is the sense of the WWE bringing someone in and wasting not only the WWE's time, but the performer's time? Like, and like we said earlier about like Angelo Dawkins, I don't think the plan is even for Angelo Dawkins to get to the main roster.
Right.
I actually think at this point in time, he is in the same spot as Chris Hero. They are there to help other people get better. And sometimes you need that. Like sometimes, or other times you're just not going to be like, if you get there and they see how you interact with people or just how your in-ring work is and how susceptible you are, or whether you actually take on opinions and, whether you work on things or not, maybe they just see, you're just not cut out for this company. Maybe go out, get some more life experience, especially when you have like some folks that are like, young. So for instance, Patrick Clark is like a perfect example of that most recently, right? So he was wrestling on the independent circuit before he got on Tough Enough, right? And just doing like super low level stuff with like Leo Rush, if I remember correctly.
Yes.
So you have that, and then he's on Tough Enough. Everybody saw his potential on Tough Enough, right? Like he looked like, this kid's got something. I don't know what it is, but there's something special here. And he got booted off of Tough Enough by Hulk Hogan's vote of all things. And he came back with Hulk Hogan's gear on, which it's kind of like because Hulk Hogan. but it's also a nice little slap in the face too. But so he went out on the independent circuit after Tough Enough and proved and just grinded and grinded and grind. Like he was working all the time and he got better in the ring to where he is now. Like he is one of the, I don't care what anyone says, he's one of the top superstars in the company. And he is the type of person that when he could get on, they could take him to the main roster right now. And I think he would thrive. Right. And like that just goes to show sometimes, yes, you get let go. You go out there, you prove yourself, you come back, you know, and other times, shit, you're just not meant to be here. You know, like every independent wrestler can't be in the WWE. Sure, everybody's goal at some point is probably to get into the WWE and win a championship. But shit, sometimes you just don't get that. That's life.
Well, then again, like you just said, you summed it up pretty basic for me. It's like, that's life. You don't always get what you think you deserve. There's a line out there I've told people, you don't get what you deserve in life. You get what you can negotiate.
True.
And prime example, you mentioned Lio Rush, right?
Yep.
Now, I've seen Lio Rush put on a lot of great independent matches.
Right.
I've seen him against a personal favorite of mine out here, Ken Broadway from House of Glory. Amazing match. Probably one of the top 3 matches I've seen live. But he is not suited for WWE. I'm sorry.
No.
Like the fact that they want to hotshot him to 205 Live because he's a name,
yeah,
tells you enough right there. Because they could have done it with Ricochet, and yet Ricochet's in NXT tearing it up with Patrick Clark. If you saw their match from Takeover,
oh god, that was orgasm.
And I was worried about Patrick. I was worried about Patrick when you brought him up before, because after that match with Aleister Black from Takeover Houston,
yeah,
I was worried. I was scared that he had plateaued because he had some lackluster. He had a lackluster match with Chris Hero, like we've talked about.
right.
And I was like, oh man, is he just character? But watching him work against Ricochet, I believe in Patrick Clark again.
Yeah.
But again, you don't always get the spot.
Right.
That's life.
Yeah.
So Big Cass, Thanos snapped his fingers, you gone. Enzo, Thanos snapped his fingers, you gone too. Only one still here is Carmella. So before we get out of here, that's actually a good question to end on. If Thanos snapped his fingers, what wrestlers would you want to disappear?
All of Ohio is for killers. All of them can go.
Wow.
Like I don't get it.
You went there.
Absolutely, I don't get it. Like it's just, for me, they appeal to the people when I was in high school that bought all of their clothing from Hot Topic.
Oh shit!
And like, it's just I don't get it. It's like you know, yeah, have they put on good matches? Sure, but like the whole thing and like how folks obsess over them, I don't get it. Yeah, there's a couple Japanese wrestlers that I'm like, I don't get it either. But you know, I know there are Japanese wrestlers that I absolutely love. Shout out to Dan Shoko Dino, even though he's problematic as hell because he's not actually gay and plays a gay character in wrestling. But yeah, I just don't get him. I don't get it.
I'm trying to think for me personally, like on the independent scene, like I think Sonya Strong should disappear. That's for me personally. That's one of those things that just can't happen anymore.
Oh yeah, Flip Gordon can fuck off too.
Oh hell yeah! I will snap all my gauntlet hands.
Yes, the whole thing. Just burn the whole.
And I know Flip knows people that I am on good terms with, and legitimately that they're friends with Flip Gordon, but never gonna. Nope, never.
You don't get to threaten people. You don't get to threaten wrestling fans with violence on Twitter and just get away with it, especially when you're active duty military like that.
No, that's not good. Yeah, you lose more than cool points there, man. You lose respect.
Yeah. So
Colt Cabana could disappear.
I wouldn't snap my fingers on Colt Cabana just because I know some of my wrestling Twitter people love him so much.
And I know exactly who you're talking about. But for me, they no snap. And if we're going main roster, trying to think now. I hate to say this, Anderson and Gallows,
Yeah.
because I love their New Japan work.
But the thing, like, and that's the thing about them, you could never get their New Japan work over here because all they did was cuss up a goddamn storm in New Japan all the time, and you could be just vile heels over there. You're never gonna be able to get that over here. Like, what? You're just not gonna be able to do that. And yes, they've had some pretty dope matches in the WWE, but yeah, you're not going to be able to capture the same things that you can get in Japan because you can't get away with stuff like that. You can't get away with what you can get away with in the ring, like the stiff shots to the head.
Mhm.
If you're an English speaker, just cursing every 3 seconds.
I mean, go back and listen to those old school Bullet Club promos with Balor and them, and just, dude, when they
Oh
were
yeah,
kidnapping people and like cussing up a storm, like those guys.
shout out to Tamatanga,
I love that dude, man.
bro. If he ever comes to the WWE, that is going to be the guy, the
Oh, yeah,
big
definitely. Hashtag he's my big dog as opposed to hashtag not my big dog.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Nothing but respect for my president.
Oh, let's not start with Space Force, which would have been a good tag team name in the 80s, according to you. Space
Absolutely. What Space Force you had back in the day? You had Strike Force and the Blade Runners and like all what was the Demolition.
Mhm.
Like Space Force would have been an amazing tag
Power
name.
and Glory. Yeah, the
Yeah.
Space Force would have been a good team, you know?
Yeah, like anything that sounded like a video game would be an awesome name, right? Like, yeah.
So, okay, last question before we get out of here. What's your favorite wrestling game of all time?
Ooh. Oh man. Favorite wrestling game of all time. It would have to be one of the WWE games. I forgot the exact year, but it was one of the years where you could still do create a finisher, when you could create a move. I am one of those people that will go into a creator wrestler suite and literally spend hours. Like I've spent upwards of 8 hours customizing a character in one day before. So, and it was one of like the early SmackDown ones. Like I want to say it was like
Here Comes the Pain.
Here Comes the Pain. That's the exact one. Yeah. So yeah, like that for me. Yes, I love was it WCW NWO Revenge?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's good. And WWF, what was the one that they had on N64?
No Mercy?
No Mercy. Like those were cool, but like I actually liked being able to create my own character instead of just like swapping the skins or costumes on characters that you could on like the N64 stuff. So
yeah, I was gonna say mine was Here Comes the Pain because that's a lot of people's favorite.
Yeah,
it's just for the pure creativity you can inject into it. So I'm with you on that one, especially when you create a finisher. Because I would chain like 4 finishers together and make something like that looks like it's taken 10 years to develop, but it looked cool.
Oh yeah, like I had mine. It was a move that Nova used to use, which I don't even like fuck what anybody says.
Kryptonite
Nova,
Crunch?
nah, not the Kryptonite Crunch. It was a power bomb into a cutter.
Ooh.
Yeah, so he used the momentum from when you lift somebody up in there. So they continued their rotation and they landed down the cutter. I used that. That was the finisher that I have there. And then there was like I think I like somehow had like it was a lot of power bomb setup stuff. So it was like power bomb into like a suplex or like a Death Valley driver type things. It was weird, but it worked and it was awesome. So yeah, just that bit of that creativity that you could use back then. Like, yeah, it's fun that in 2K18 and 19 that you can like map your face and all that shit on there, but like,
nah, it's creepy, dude. I'm good.
Yeah.
I don't need my face in the video game. I'm
Yeah.
all right.
I would much rather a creative move suite back. Like bring that back. I'll pay extra. Like if they have
I'll buy that DLC.
I'll buy that DLC for $20 easy, and I won't complain a single fucking bit about it. So yeah, like that is, and I complain like a motherfucker about some DLC. Like, I'm sorry, if I buy the game, I shouldn't have to pay.
Oh yeah, we're
anymore.
gonna save that for a future episode because I got a bone to pick with DLC too. So we'll save that for a future episode.
Yeah.
But I want to leave on this note. You mentioned Nova.
Mhm.
That's another dude that fits the motif of what we've been talking about here on Podcast Champions, where on the circuit, that
Awesome.
man was legit.
Yeah, in ECW, he was it. He came in with the fucking superhero theme before
The BWO.
before, not even before the BWO. I'm talking like even before the BWO. He had like, he would have a he had like a Green Lantern costume. He had a Venom one. He had a Flash. He was doing this before Rey Mysterio started making it popular in the WWE. When he would have like big match looks where he would use superhero stuff. So yeah, Nova was that dude, and it just didn't click.
Simon Dean, baby.
Yep.
Made him into a fitness guru, the first Tony Horton, essentially.
Yep.
So you've been watching the Podcast Champs. For those at home, my name, Damon G. You can find me on Twitter at DamonG347 as well as on Instagram. Deal is I'm just DEO on both Twitter and Instagram. Find our show streaming apparently on Spreaker.
Yep. Like
reposting
crazy.
10 times a day. I'm trying to fix that problem, as well as SoundCloud and on iTunes. And you've been listening to the Podcast Champs. We will see you next week.
Peace.